Good day, we are Group 5 and we're here to present Exercise 7, Toad External Anatomy. Introduction, Background of Frogs and Toads. They are used in dissection because large bullfrogs and toads have a body shape structure that represents the body parts and structures of vertebrates really well, and they are commonly used because of their ready availability. Materials, compound light microscope, dissecting pan, probe, prepared slide of toad skin, and preserved toad. Histology of skin. This is divided into two major sections, the outer epidermis and inner dermis. Epidermis. The epidermis consists of two layers of stratified epithelium. The outer layer is called the stratum corneum, which is made up of a layer of flattened dead cells, and the inner layer is called stratum germinativum, which is made up of living and growing epithelial tissue. Dermis. The dermis is the innermost layer of the skin, consisting of two more sublayers. The outer sublayer of the dermis is called the stratum spongiosum. This is where the cutaneous glands are located, which gives it a spongy appearance. The inner sublayer is the stratum compactum, which is made up of layers of compactly arranged white fibrous connective tissue. Lastly is glands. Glands. The stratum spongiosum contains two types of glands, the mucus glands, which can be observed to be empty and having thicker walls. The other is Poisson glands, which can be observed to be thinner and more granular compared to the mucus glands.
The external anatomy of the frog. Firstly, it would be good to consider the anatomical direction of the frog. The frog has a bilateral symmetry or separated into right and left halves. It is also separated into four regions. The anterior region, which is the head end, the posterior region or the tail end, the dorsal or the backside, the ventral or the belly side. It is also separated into three planes. The frontal plane, divided into the dorsal and ventral sections. The sagittal or longitudinal, divided into right and left. And the transverse plane, divided into the anterior and posterior. The frog can also be separated into locations relative to the center of its body. The medial, or near the middle of the body. Lateral, or to the sides. Proximal, or the part of a structure that is near the center. The distal, or the part of the structure that is far from the center. Next, the frog can be separated into two regions, the axial and the appendicular regions. The axial region is consisted of the head and the trunk, while the appendicular region consists of the forelimb or the anterior pair and the hind limbs or the posterior pair. We can also see the cloacal aperture of the frog. Next is the head. The most anterior portion of the head is the snout, where a pair of openings can be seen at the tip called the external nares. And near the external nares are the eyes. It has a lower and upper eyelid and a transparent membrane that keeps the eyes moist underwater, or called the nictitating membrane. Next to the eyes is an ovoid region of tightly drawn skin, called the tympanic membrane or the eardrum, covering the auditory canal. The next part would be the parts of the forelimbs, in which we can observe the upper arm, the forearm, the hand, the wrist, and the digits. We can also see the parts of the hind limb, which is the thigh, the shank, the ankle, the foot, and the digits.
Now for the guide questions. We were asked to determine the significance of the difference in color of the dorsal and ventral surfaces of the frog's body and what is the protective advantage of this if the predator approaches a swimming bullfrog or toad from above or from below. Now, the difference between the dorsal and ventral is that dorsal is much darker. Is much darker. This helps the frog blend within the environment when viewed from above, while ventral is lighter in color. This helps the frog blend within with the color of the sky when viewed from below or when the frog is swimming on water. With all this, the significance of the color of the dorsal and ventral is that it functions as a camouflage for frogs that would help them escape from predators by blending in with the environment. Another guide question is we were asked to determine the sex of the specimen based on its external features. So, to identify whether the frog is a male or a female, we can determine this by its size. For the male, we can see that their body size is much smaller than the female. We can also take a look at its coloration or the ventral pigmentation. For the male, their skin would be darker on their belly side and on the female would be lighter. You can see from the image on the left is a male's ventral side. Another way is to look at their digits or their fingers. For the male, they have a swollen thumb pads. As for the female, they don't. We can see from the image on the right, the thumb pads of a female frog is not swollen. That's all. Thank you.